This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to thank everybody here today. We're going to be discussing, I'm Charlie, like I said, with SS Solutions. We are manufacturers reps. Me personally, I've been involved with Expo products for almost 11 years now. Of course, many of you know Buck, and we have many of our other people on the phone today. So as we go through, if you have questions, please let us know. If you don't get them asked during this, please feel free to reach out to us after. But today we're going to be talking about Fast Reporter 2. What I'm going to start off with is a basic overview of, well, Fast Reporter 2, and I will be doing a little bit of Fast Reporter 3. But we're going to start off with a little bit of a basic overview of Fast Reporter, and then I'm going to get into what's important when doing, say, multi tests with different equipment and how to set it up so you can be successful. Fast Reporter is a wonderful tool, and if you do a little legwork in the beginning, it makes it real easy to create your reports. If you kind of go through your testing, not with a clear setup of identifications, fiber IDs throughout the entire project, it can take a little bit of time and manpower to make a report. So we want to set you up so that you can do a report quickly, efficiently, and get the results that you want. So a couple things to point out with Fast Reporter 2 and 3 actually, and I will show 3 and what the differences are. This is how I like to have the screen set up. You can do that within your own by going to the View tab and turning on these windows. These are important windows because they will be used as you go through your reports, especially the results window, the files window, and the matched files window. Here is where you bring in your files and you'll see them listed. Here's where you will see an OTDR trace or something like that. As I bring them in, you'll see them show up here. And here's where you're going to see your individual results. You'll find with Fast Reporter, there's multiple ways to do almost everything. Me, I'm a mouse and a keyboard guy. So here's where I right clicked in the files. I can do an open file. If you're a drop down menu guy or girl person, you can come here and go to open files, or there's even an icon. So there's multiple ways to do a lot of things. Right here, it's grayed out, but these are icons to change your direction. Well, I have the same option right here by doing a right click. So whatever feels comfortable for you is the way you can do it. So to get started, and I will discuss these down here once I have something in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in some OTDR traces. So I have some traces here. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to hit open. And here's all my traces, and it actually put them right into order how I need them. Now here you will notice that I've set it up. I have a name, I have a fiber ID, and I also have a direction. When doing bidirectional tests, having a direction, and you can set this up how you want it in your OTDR. It's important that you set it up correctly. If you don't, things are not going to line up correctly. Also, if you do make a mistake, you can change it with Fast Reporter. So right now, these are correct. These actually you need to change outside of Fast Reporter, but there's information within it. As I click through here, you see the trace come up and you will see information down here change. So as I go through here, you can see the fiber ID change. I never did put in a job ID, but say right now, I didn't put that job ID and I need it. I can click and I can come in here and change it. So in this case, I'm going to call it SS test. Now, Fast Reporter will change based on what is highlighted over here. So now I put in SS test. Now if I go click on these individually, they all say SS test as my job ID. So it can cover up a few indiscretions that are made at the OTDR. Couple other things to point out. This is where you will see your information about the trace. As we go through here, you're going to see things grayed out like this. You're going to see things in white. The gray you cannot change. This comes from the test itself. So like your range, your pulse, your duration, you can't change those. Those have to be done at the OTDR when you take the shot. But you can change things such as your splice detection threshold. Actually, a story here. Customer had a trace like this, and he did not see events on his trace, and he didn't know why. He couldn't figure it out why. We're trying to figure out, he could see that he had loss, but no event marker. We're trying to figure out, all of a sudden we came along that he had set this value to a 1.0 on accident. You can see what just happened to my trace. I've told it now to disregard anything that's a splice below a 1 dB. So as a result, I can see that I have loss, but the system doesn't, I've told it to ignore it. So once we fix this for him, everything showed up like it should. So be mindful of that on your OTDRs, that these are set up properly, especially your end of fiber detection threshold. For those who are working on a PON network with a splitter, if you don't set this high enough, your splitter could cause the OTDR shot to do an end of fiber, and you might end here if this is where the splitter, and you still have all this stuff after it. So it's important to watch out for it. Thresholds, these are what came over from the test itself. And then of course our event table. Now, those are a little bit of the basics. To do a report, you would come here to tools and you'd go into report after highlighting. So at this point, if I do a report, I'm only going to get a report for this fiber right here because this is the one that's highlighted. So I'd come down to the respective template. I would pick where I want to save it. So here you can create project folders, or you have project folders previously created. You can select them and it'll save the report in there. You pick it, you give it a name, and also what type of file format you would like the report in. Maybe you need it just in Excel instead of a PDF. You can do that. I would leave this generate individual report files turned off. This is this will create an individual file for every trace you have. So here I have, I believe it's 8 to 10 traces. If I did that, it would give me 8 to 10 reports. If I leave this turned off, it's going to give me one report with all the results of everything in one report if everything was highlighted. Right now, I only have one selected. So if I gave it a name and clicked OK, I'm only going to get the report, a PDF of that. That's the basic stuff. Now, what we want to talk about is having to do multiple different tests and making sure you get everything in the right order. Again, like I said earlier, doing a little bit of legwork on your testing devices ahead of time will save you time here. If not, then you have to create the system that your reports will be calculated on. So an important tab down here that I want to make note of is this matched file. So here we look and it says I have 1 through 6. Some of these are A to B, some of them are B to A. I have on number 5 and number 6, I have bidirectional, or what we're representing as bidirectional shots. Now, one of the things you need to point out when doing multiple fibers and you want everything to line up is that your fiber ID, so we're going to take this number 1 and we're going to look at the fiber ID. This fiber ID needs to be the same throughout all of your, what you would call fiber number 1. Actually, what I'm going to do to illustrate this is I'm going to bring in some OLTS shots too. So if I select both this OTDR shot and this OLTS shot, if you notice right here, it only says fiber 1. That's because I've gone through and I've said these two belong together, and Fast Reporter will recognize that they belong together because they have the same fiber ID. Now, if I take this one and this one, or this one and this one, you're going to see fiber 2 and fiber 1. Fast Reporter recognizes, or it believes, that these are of different fiber IDs because it's been labeled correctly. Now, where you can easily see if everything is correct. So here I have 1 through 4, just a single OTDR trace, 5 and 6 are bidirectional, and I have an OLTS for each one. So I'm going to come in here to match files and see if that's correct. And actually, it's not correct. The first thing I see is I have 9 fiber IDs. It says that my fiber 3 and fiber 5 are not labeled fiber 3 and fiber 5. Maybe this is while it was testing, somebody didn't recognize where the identification was at the time, so they just took a shot. I've seen where entire characterization files didn't hardly match through anything. So this is bidirectional OTDR, bidirectional OLTS, and CDPND. There was a little work that needed to be done. A numbering system for all the fibers had to be created so that each fiber, so where this amounts to is when you go and test, if you're doing, say, like this, OTDR and OLTS, whatever you call fiber 1, you need to call it that for all the tests you do. Same thing with all the numbers. So if you start with 12 fibers and you test as fiber 1, 1 through 12, every other test you do, if you want your reports to match easily, need to have the same fiber IDs, 1 through 12 on the same strand. Even when you do bidirectional, when you go to the other side, start with the first strand, make sure you call it fiber 1 and change your direction to be B to A on your OTDR. Now, again, Fast Reporter can fix things. So here I'm looking at fiber 1. I have an OTDR and an OLTS shot. I can see here trace shot and OLTS shot. Now fiber 2 says I have 3. It says I have 2 OLTS shots. So I need to go in here, and what I can do is I can start looking. So I have these correct, so let me see here. I have, if we look down here at fiber ID, I can just click down and look at each one. Oh, there's that. So here I just simply come in, this says fiber 8, it's supposed to be number 3. I believe my naming structure. I can go in, change it to 3. Let's go to the next one, 4, 5, Here's another one. So these are bidirectional. Now you see here, these are both 5. If I don't have the same fiber ID on what I'm going to be doing as bidirectional tests, Fast Reporter will not recognize that they belong together and will not give you a bidirectional result, even if you try to do the bidirectional template. For bidirectionals to work, you have to have the same fiber ID, and you have to have an A to B and a B to A. Now here, I labeled them correctly, but the direction, I never changed it in the identification. So I can come in here and go, well, that's supposed to be B to A. I right click, I come down to direction, I click B to A, I just change that direction. Same thing here. B to A. So let me finish here. That's fiber 6 and that's fiber 6. Okay, my OTDRs are correct. So let's look at my OLTS. I got 1, I got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm good there. The reason why there's a couple extra OLTS is because within that one, there was a couple saved within that file. But you could see here where I have everything as I want it for the OLTS. So now I would be ready to do reports based on this and make sure things match and are correct. Now, say on this OTDR or even the OLTS, we'll come here. You can even change your thresholds here.
Shoot that damn.
Can we make sure everybody is muted at this point? Actually, before I go on, does anybody have any questions at this time? I will take that as no. Another thing that you can do, say everything is out of order. Say these first 4 were out of order. And you don't want to go individually and change all of your fiber IDs. You can do what's called an auto documentation. So if I come down here, under fiber ID, I can actually change, instead of starting with 0001, it should have started with 0008. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come back to identification. Now you see that these have all changed fiber IDs. So this is so if the whole thing, if you have your sequence, but everything is misnumbered, you can do it by coming in here, make sure you're in the right sequence, highlighting and doing that audio documentation. So let me change these back. And now they've all changed back just like that. Now for some, not all reports, but some reports, if we come into here, and we go to report, there is combination reports. We scroll down here, we can do an IOLM with the scope report. We can also do IOLM and OTDR plus a scope report. If we change where we're getting the reports from, which is crystal reports, we have more. Now, when doing combined reports, there is one, if you're doing a characterization, and numbers matter more so than the graph. What you can do is this, is highlight them all, come up here and go to fiber characterization. I'm going to go back to the PDF from Excel here. Fiber characterization. And depending on how fast of a computer will depend on how fast you get your reports. Now let me zoom in here. Okay, so here, this is giving me a fiber characterization reading. So here I have 1 through 6, because I made sure all my fiber IDs were correct. It shows me each of the wavelengths. And it gives me, so like here, the OLTS, it gives me the loss for each direction, what the average is, what the ORL is for each direction, and the length. On the OTDR, it gives me such things as the max splice loss, or the average splice loss in the span length, and of course, your total span loss if when you're going against your loss budget. Now, if I had CDPMD, I would have numbers here, but I don't. So a better way, if you don't want this and you're just doing OTDR and loss testing, is you can come in here and instead of doing a PDF, do it from an Excel spreadsheet. So here I now have an Excel spreadsheet, so I can actually delete these lines now if I wanted to and go, you know, those aren't important. This is all that matters. So with the Excel spreadsheet, you can actually do a little bit of manipulation on your report. You can do something like add a logo up here if you wanted to. You could point out if you wanted to highlight something specific, you could do that. Now, so here, because I have A to B, if you remember when I selected this before, it didn't show that bidirectional. Because I fixed these, they have the same fiber ID and there's an A to B and a B to A, it is now putting them into bidirectional. Let me show you by itself. So there we go. So here, it's now showing it as it would be as a bidirectional shot, where with the single, and that's because I told it, yes, we do have bidirectionals, and now it recognizes it. If I try to do this and this, or sorry, this one and that one, it gives me an error. It recognizes that they're A to B and B to A, but it's saying that they are not a matched file, and it will not work for a, or it may work, but it looks ugly. Yeah, see, it does not. It recognizes these don't match. So that can help you with your doing your bidirectional reports. Now, like I said about changing thresholds, I'm going to click OK here. I'm going to come here and say, okay, this was not correct. The unidirectional splice should have been at 0.3, and same with the bidirectional. Now the bidirectional, because it's grayed out, cannot be changed at this point, but we can change the unidirectional. because it's still, actually I'd have to check on that, why it won't change it. But here I just changed all my splices to a 0.3 as a fail. Now if I go to my event table, see where it fails. Okay. So for this, it sees loss, it sees a section, it sees a non-reflective event that for 1310 I put as 0.3. Well, I'm at 0.2, so I'm good there. It sees a reflective event, so it's not even registering another, not a reflective event, a gainer, another gainer, 0.153. So I changed all of those for 1310. So if you do have to change your thresholds, you need to make sure that either the right wavelength is selected, or you can select them all and change them all, which I just changed this one back to what it is. So any questions up to this point? Anything that anybody's been working with Fast Reporter that has been perplexing to them or that they didn't understand? Okay. With no questions, we'll move on. Important part, here's your unit of measure. If your OTDR says it was in meters for some reason, it'll come over as meters. You can change it here. But at this point, let me go into Fast Reporter 3 and show you the difference. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference between Fast Reporter 2 and Fast Reporter 3, the main difference is that Fast Reporter 2 is a single license software for your computer, which means it's tied to a specific computer. Fast Reporter 3 is tied to the new test flow software from Exo and is a subscription. So we have 1, 2, or 3 year subscriptions, and it is login based. So as you create a login, you can use that on any computer. We have a desktop. I'm on a laptop right now, but we also have a desktop that has Fast Reporter 3, and I can switch between the two just by logging into the new computer and logging out of the last one I was at. So here's Fast Reporter 3. There's a little bit of difference in how it looks, but the way it operates is similar to Fast Reporter 2. As I did, I just right-clicked. I'm bringing in my files again. As you see down here, we have the files, the measurements, the identifiers, the matched files. Based on what we select, we have different windows down here. So here's an OLTS, so it shows me my information. Now, the reason why the information that I did on the last isn't here is because I didn't save it yet. So I'm only pulling from my raw data. We come to the summary, same things, thresholds, fast test table. Let's go to an OTDR, same tables, same tabs. Threshold, you can set your thresholds. Something else too that you can do is once you bring everything in, I'll show you on Fast Reporter 2. Actually, let's do it here. So you can change your thresholds. Right now it's set for use event calculation thresholds for measurement file. That means whatever thresholds were shot with, that's what came over. Now here, you can change the wavelengths just like you can here. And this can also be on a global scale for in here. So you could go to 1310, you could specify that I want to change them and change everything here, and then press apply, and it'll adjust everything here all at once also. But here you can see Fast Reporter 3, the icons are a little bit different. And instead of going to tools to create your report, you actually go to report now. Now, there's a couple different ways. If you come in here and click this, this creates what is called an OTDR application report. And I'll show you how to do it the same way on 2, but this will give you a generic report for an OTDR. You just click it and it'll create a report and save a report. You can switch between Excel and PDF here if you so choose, or like Fast Reporter 2, you can have the window and scroll through your different templates that you want to specifically. So if you want specific, come here. Also, this will give individual files. So if you want one complete report, you need to come through here. Now, what's nice is once you select one, it stays up here in your recent, so you can just click it and go. But really, that's the biggest differences, unless you get into test flow, which depends on the size of the company and things like that. This is the difference between Fast Reporter 2 and 3, besides on how you go into the software and how you purchase it. So you're still going to do the same way of highlighting what you want to change, adjusting it here, and you have individual options for changing things. If we go back to 2, you have the standard icons. If you go into settings, you got to pick, okay, am I wanting OTDR, OLTS? It's just a lot of user preference at this point. For that application, so you can do auto documentation right here. Not the auto documentation, sorry. Oh, it's not listed there. Pardon me. So here you can generate OTDR application report if you so choose. This is just a quick down and dirty report. So to highlight, when doing multiple fibers or doing multiple tests, spend a little time before you start shooting, because the way Fast Reporter reads is fiber ID and direction. So if those aren't correct, Fast Reporter is not going to recognize that they all belong together, or they'll even be in the right order. You have to make sure that fiber IDs are correct. And here you can see with everything selected, I still only have 6 fiber IDs. And I can confirm that here too. When I was dealing with some reports, like I said, that were definitely not adjusted, I kind of lived in this screen trying to manipulate and get everything to be in order. I went from a screen this big of fiber IDs, and there was only 12 shots, to 1 through 12 by the time I was done. And everything was in order and correct. At this point, that is the end of the presentation. Is there any questions, anything that somebody wanted to review that they saw? If that is the case, I will let you go. We did record this, so we will send this out to you. You can use it as reference. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you, and